Hi, I'm Beverly Banov Brown. I am a mother of a grown child and a life coach and love mentor with over 30 years experience. And I want to congratulate you because if you're watching this video, it's very likely that you're either a new parent or you're close to an infant or a toddler. Never underestimate the influence that you can have with your love and your wisdom and your consideration and your playfulness and getting in touch with your own inner child. The influence that you can have on a developing life. So today I'd like to leave you with some golden nuggets about how to best communicate love and safety to that little infant, that little toddler. One way is to remember, and this is critical, that from the time in the womb on till about 6 or 7, we are, and we've all been through this because it's part of our lives and our maturation process on earth, we have all been like these incredibly absorbent sponges. Everything that we hear, everything that we see, taste, touch, smell, the atmosphere, we're absorbing it. And we're getting impressions that either give us a message that it's safe to be on this earth, that it's basically a friendly, loving place, or we're getting messages that would indicate the opposite. And the overall message that we wind up with will dictate much of the rest of not only our childhood and our teenage years, our early adulthood, middle age, and older times. It will also dictate how, if we get to the point where we have our own children, how we will raise them. I've worked with thousands of people starting in New York City in the 80s. And I can honestly tell you that there's not one I've ever worked with, no matter what the presenting problem was about health, finances, chronic pain, relationship issues, communication difficulties, incest, any kind of emotional or sexual abuse, you name it. I've worked with people who've had the problem. And every single one of them, when we did a little bit of researching it and uncovering what was really going on, because I don't believe in Band-Aid approach. I really try to help the person get to the core of whatever it is that's irritating them so much. It always stems back to something that happened in childhood, usually with their families, their mothers, fathers, siblings, grandparents. Grandparents are much more important, perhaps, than we ever realized in terms of the attitudes, beliefs, and values that our children learn from them, both positive and beautiful, and sometimes a bit dysfunctional. And very often, on the positive note, when we go back and we look at what are the gifts and the talents and the wonderful qualities and beliefs and attitudes and great virtues that the families and teachers and clergy and the culture generally gave to the people I've been working with, my clients, we also find there's a lot that's positive, and that's what we try to build on. So what does this have to do with how you can teach safety and love to your infant and also to your toddler? By remembering that every single thing that that child is exposed to is being absorbed and remembered and goes into the cellular memory, we can take extra care that we use a loving tone, that we use a gentle touch, that we think carefully before we respond to something they've done. Maybe they've dropped a glass of milk on the table and it made a mess and it's dripping on the floor. Instead of reacting the way we might and say, what a foolish thing that was to do, how ridiculous, whatever, be careful. Maybe even name calling, saying you were clumsy or you're a spiller. We stop and we say, hey, mistakes are for correcting. I got that phrase from Dr. Haim Ginott, who wrote several wonderful books about just that. Mistakes are for correcting. In other words, are we taking the same pains that we would, the same care, the same level of diplomacy with our children as we would with any guest in our home? If a stranger walked in off the street and you gave him or her a glass of water and they spilled it, you'd probably be reaching automatically for a paper towel or a dish towel to sop up the mess. And you'd be trying very hard to spare their feelings. But very often, parents forget to do that for their children, not because they don't love them, but because they get tired, and because they see them every day, and because sometimes they just forget. Well, when we forget, really, in a broader sense, the harm that we could be inadvertently doing. Also, if you have a partner in the home, if you have in-laws, if you have other people who you speak to, your own parents, maybe not in the home, but you speak to them on the phone or they come to visit, or whatever form these interactions take. Every time that child hears you fighting or cursing, every time there's music that's discordant, every time they're in the presence of cigarette smoke or other toxins, they're getting that. You're getting it too, but they're getting it, and they're even less able at that early, very vulnerable time in their lives to deal with that toxicity. And really, they shouldn't have to. And really, once you know that something like dissension in a family can hurt them, that's the last thing you want to do. It's not something you want to do to yourself, so why on earth would you want to do it to your children? So those are 2 golden nuggets for today. There will be others. I'll be doing other videos about parental communication in the upcoming weeks and months, and I offer them to you with great love and great optimism, because I know that once I learn how to do something better, once my clients learn how to do something better, we do better, period. It just becomes second nature. You'd be amazed how many parents in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s of the last century had no concept of the terrible effects that were created in their children because they didn't realize how much the films they might have been watching, the music they might have been listening to, the atmosphere in the home of bickering and dissension was affecting their children, or they never would have done it in the first place. If you need help with your communication skills, they're easily learnable. If you have anger issues, get a good life coach. If you have problems in your relationship with your partner, find a good love mentor. But don't let it slide, because your child is only a child once. I'm going to say that again. Your child is only a child once and deserves to have a wonderful childhood. And we all know, that's what we want for our children, just as we wanted it for ourselves. I'm Beverly Banov Brown. It's been marvelous to have this time with you today. If you have any questions or comments about what I've said, please feel free to get in touch with me at coachhq@gmail.com. That's COACHHQ@gmail.com. Until next time, bye for now.